Greetings and hello. Happy What If Wednesday. I'm Mindy Odlin, and thank you for being part of this time that we have together every week to reflect on some new ideas, to brainstorm, and hopefully to give you some tidbits, some nuggets that can make your day, your week just a little bit brighter. So this week, I just released a new episode of my What If It All Goes Right podcast with an interview with Martha Beck. Now, Martha Beck, if you read O Magazine, you've probably read a lot of articles by Martha Beck. She's written over 200 articles for O Magazine. And I did a flashback for my podcast this week to an interview that I did with Martha Beck back when her book, Steering by Starlight, was just coming out. So I thought for this What If Wednesday, what a great opportunity for us to come together and to talk about some of the things that Martha brought up in that interview. So I really was drawn to one specific certificate. I was drawn to this one specific thing that she said today as I was thinking about What If Wednesday. She was talking about fear, and she was talking about how your brain is wired to be afraid. So for this What If Wednesday, I thought, wow, what a great thing to dive into is to look at what is fear and how do we use it for a positive purpose, and how do we not let it run our lives and lead us into little tiny boxes that we feel stuck in, right? So that's where we're going today with What If Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining. So the first thing that Martha Beck said is she defined what fear is. She said your brain is it has this reptile part of it called the reptile brain. This deep part of your brain that evolved over thousands and thousands of years. And it evolved really to keep us alive during times when there were tigers trying to eat us at night. You know, those types of dangers that were present thousands of years ago. But we don't have them now, but our brain evolved to be able to help us survive in those times. So what she said that I really loved was this awareness that your brain has essentially two types of fears. There are two. And if we can identify what those two types are when they're running the show, then it gives us a point of control to be able to decide, is that fear valid? Do I need to respond to the fear? Or is it just my reptile? She calls it the lizard brain. Is it just my lizard brain trying to take me down that what if down spiral when I'm trying to what if up? So that's where we're going today. So she talked about two types of fear. So we're going to start with that. What are the two types of fear? Okay, so there's one that she calls them lack and attack. Lack and attack are the two types of fear. So let's unpack this and break it down. So attack fears. Attack fears are, there's this part of your brain that is constantly scanning for predators. Am I going to be prey to some predator, right? Because that's how we evolved, is we were not always top of the food chain. So your brain is wired to constantly scanning for dangers. Am I about to be attacked? So what is the positive purpose of this? Everything has a positive purpose, you know. The positive purpose is this part of the brain is there to protect us. It's there to protect us from being ambushed. So when we ask things like, you know, am I in danger right now? Or that is something out to get me? Like those are some of the thoughts, the feelings that kind of go with this idea of attack fears. It is your brain scanning to make sure that you're safe. So it has a positive purpose. And perhaps maybe you can think of some times in your life when that instinct was a life-saving instinct. And you respond, you know, with the fight or flight. And, you know, we have all of that built into us, all built into this amazing body temple that we have. Now, what happens, the challenge with it is sometimes our brain is scanning, looking for what's the danger, who's out to get me, what's the danger, who's out to get me. And it's going to be scanning all the time because that's how, you know, human beings, that's how the body stays safe, is we have this scanner, this fabulous scanner deep in our brain. The problem is sometimes it will identify a potential threat, something that it thinks, oh, that's a threat. That person's out to get me. That thing is against me. This is dangerous. And sometimes it will alert us to things that maybe aren't necessarily true. Maybe they're not super likely to happen. So thank you so much for joining. I love your comments. Good morning, Judy Light. Great to see you. Good morning back to you. We're talking about fear, the two types of fear, the attack fears and the lack fears. So attack fears are scanning for, am I in danger? And the lack fears, these are based on a different instinct. So lack fears are based on a primal need to win the resources, right? So lack fears will sound like things like, is there enough for me? A lot of the not enoughness that we experience, that we think in our brain, a lot of it is coming from this reptile brain that is concerned that there's not enough. If there's not enough food, if there's not enough shelter, if there's not enough human connection, bonding, is there not enough for me to survive? So your brain is wired to help you thrive and survive. Survive. This is survival mode. And this is what it's trying to do. It's trying to help you win the resources to have the food so you don't starve. And it's also trying to protect you from others who may be out to get you, the tiger, the hungry lion, whatever it is. So what do? Well, the first thing is just knowing that my brain is going to scan for these things. And that's not a bad thing, right? Not a bad thing to have enough food and shelter and water and love. It's like, that's not a bad thing. I kind of appreciate that there's a part of my brain scanning for that. Where it becomes troublesome is when it creates stress or anxiety, and when it is identifying a danger or a not enoughness that is not actually the truth. So I brought with me the 3 questions that I ask myself whenever I notice that I'm having a fear response to something. You know, when you start what if upping, we always begin with the question, what do you want? And sometimes the bigger the dream, the bolder the dream, the sneakier these fears are in terms of saying, well, that doesn't sound safe. That doesn't sound like, what if you run out of money? What if you can't? What if your family doesn't like it? What if your coworkers don't like what you do in something different? So we have all these fears that show up anytime we try to do something new. It is part of the brain. It is there to serve us. And we are bigger than our brains. There is part of us that is so much bigger and brighter. And we have this amazing destiny ahead of us. Martha Beck calls it your North Star. You've got a purpose. I believe you have a purpose on this planet. And if you are alive, as Richard Bach would say, how do you know your mission is complete? Or isn't complete? It's not complete if you're alive. If you're alive, you have a purpose here. Your beingness has a purpose here if you're alive on this planet. So how do we notice the fears that pop up, recognize that they are serving a positive purpose, and not allow them to derail us from following through on that purpose and that passion? So I'm going to just kick it out to you. So what are some ideas you have? Remember, we're what if uppers here. So start everything with a what if. What are some of your ideas for how to overcome that reptile brain, that lizard brain that sometimes creeps up, especially when we try to do something new, especially when we go for a big, bold dream? I'm going to share with you what I do. So one possibility, and I look forward to hearing your ideas as well. What if it's just a matter of being aware? What if just noticing is the biggest thing that we can do? What if, and this is what I would share with you next, what if anytime you notice those fears popping up, you ask yourself, you, higher being you, ask yourself, lizard brain, what if you ask yourself these 3 questions to help you determine what to do with those thoughts, with those fears? All right, so here's my 3 questions. This is my brainstorm idea for the day. Okay, so here we go. First question I ask myself when I'm noticing anxiety is this real? Is this a real threat? It is easy to look at the news today and find things to worry about, to find things to be afraid of. Our lizard brain is in overdrive. And so the first question to ask is, this thing that I'm afraid of, is it a real thing? Is this a real danger? Am I really in danger? Is there really a tiger at my door? So that's the first question I ask is it real? The second question I ask, and sometimes it is. It's like, well, yes, that is a real danger. That is real. I'm not making this up. Like that's a real thing. So the next question I ask myself is there anything that I can do? Right. So it may be that there is a fear. We could look at anything from climate change to violence to, just the dangers of, is there enough food or inflation or all these different things that we're afraid of? Is it real? Next question is there anything that I can do? All right. So I'm actually going to go to what I think is the easier one is the lack fear. So you could look at inflation and say, okay, is that real? Is it harder? Is it to get food? Is it harder to supply chain issues? Is it harder to get to the food that I need to survive to take care of my family? Is it real? Okay, yes, it is real. So the next question is there anything that I can do? Well, it may be that there's a lot I can do, and this is where we go from victim, that our fear has us feel helpless and anxious, that anxiety is saying, do something. So, what can I do? Is there anything that I can do? Well, I can look at my budget. I can make some spending choices. I can look for ways to make money stretch. I can look for ways to generate more money. Are there things I can do? Absolutely. If my budget's tight, I'm afraid I don't have enough money, there are things that I can do. And then the third question I ask is, here's number 3. So here's number 1. Number 2, is it real? Is there something I can do? And then question number 3 is it mine to do? Because sometimes you can look at the fears and the dangers and the things that are going on in the world and say, okay, well, there's all these issues. There's immigration, there's diversity, there's inclusion, there's justice, there's violence in the schools, there's, blessings and just holding the space for pouring love into our world right now. There's a lot going on right now. There is a lot going on now. And our brain is responding to it, right? And if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling anxious all the time and you're feeling stressed, I hope these questions help. Is this real? Is this a real concern? Is there something I can do? Because if there's not something I can do, if I'm just scared all the time to walk out of my house, is there something I can do? If the answer is no, then what if I just say, okay, I am just going to live in this world that I'm in and be as happy as I possibly can be, because there is nothing that I can do in this circumstance. Now, a lot of times there is something that we can do. And that's what if upping helps us do, is identify some of those action items. So what are some of the things that I could do? I could do this, I could do that. Climate change, I can recycle, I can eat organic, I can buy local. Like, what can I do? Is there anything that I can do? And then the third question is, okay, of these things that I can do, what is mine to do? If I look at issues of injustice or gun violence or whatever those things may be, is there something I can do? I can vote, and maybe that's what's mine to do. But maybe devoting my life to it is not mine to do, but doing these small things is something I can do. Attending a class, learning more, learning about diversity, inclusion. Maybe that's something that's mine to do. But maybe lobbying is not. So there may be lots and lots of things that we can do, and then it's discerning what is mine to do. So this is awareness. Is this real? I'm noticing a fear. I'm noticing that I feel under attack. I'm noticing some lack. Is this real, or am I just completely making it up? So that's an awareness. That's a wisdom piece. Is there anything I can do? This is when we take it to our imagination. And is it mine to do? This is where we take it to our wisdom. We make a decision, and then we commit to doing the thing that is ours to do. We live in a world that is filled with opportunities for us to discern what is ours to do. We live in a world that is filled with opportunities for us to think differently, to do things differently than we have done before. And as we imagine the world that we want, and as we imagine possibilities for moving through those fears, for stepping into that utopia that we can envision, the question is, what is mine to do as part of this bigger vision? So, Judy, thank you for checking in. Judy, it's great to see you. Once we determine the fear is not real, What if we see fear as a friendly reminder that we are thinking about what we don't want so that we can think about what we do want instead? Yes, what if the fear allows us to refocus? One of the things that I learned early on in my facilitator training as I was working with young people and we were looking at fear. At the time, this was like back in the early 90s and like late 80s, early 90s, there was this slogan you'd see on everybody's t-shirt. Remember this? The no fear t-shirts. It was like, no fear. Like, I'm going to go boldly into the world with no fear, no fear, no fear. And the truth is, your brain doesn't work that way. And if you know that your brain is just going to scan, scan, scan. And if we give a lot of attention to those fears, then it will scan even more. And if we identify the fear, process the fear, and then move on, then it doesn't run our lives to the same degree. So what I learned back in my early days of facilitation was this little paradigm shift. So instead of going into life and going into your week and going into your day with that no fear mantra, what if we modify it just a little so that we can know the fear, we can recognize it when it pops up, we can know what it is, we can know what it's trying to do, we can see its positive purpose, we can identify if it's guiding us into taking inspired action, and then if it is, then we do. And if it's not, then we let go and move forward. We have amazing things to create here together. And the key to moving forward and not getting stuck is to become masterful with our fears. So thanks for joining me for What If Wednesday. I love your ideas. Keep sharing those what if possibilities. What if today you have an extra level of mindfulness around those little fears, little anxieties, little doubts that pop up? And what if every time they do, you ask yourself, is this an attack fear or is this a lack fear? And what do I want to do with it? What if we become masterful at identifying those fears, calling them for what they are, transforming them into inspired action so that we can either just let it go and move forward, or we can do the thing that it is calling us to do. So what do you see as possible? Post it in the comments as a what if. Keep the conversation going. We're going to keep talking about this in our What If Up community. If you're not in the What If Up community, what are you waiting for? Just join at whatifup.org. It's free. We have an amazing community that's building in our Facebook group, fantastic dialogues, all kinds of great educational resources, and amazing people that are there to stand by you anytime you're feeling yourself going down that slippery slope. We are here to help you what if up into hope and possibility and connection. So thanks for joining, and I look forward to seeing you this week in the What If Up Club. Bye, everybody. Have a great week. Love you all. Bye-bye. Here we go.